Hello, welcome to my APWH History People. Today we can talk about the Unit 7 Topic 1 Changes in the Global Political Order of the 20th Century. We'll start with the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was once the most powerful Muslim empire in human history, but by the beginning of the 20th century, especially after the Greek War of Independence, it had become the segment of Europe. And in order to maintain the prosperity of their country, the Ottoman Empire started the Tanzimat reforms. The young Ottomans promoted Western ideas and politics within the Ottoman Empire. The Sultan initially agreed to the reforms, but then rescinded them and became a dictator again, which led to another group, the Young Turks, calling for complete modernization, expulsion of minorities ethnics, and establishment of Turkish leadership. The Young Turks also pushed for reforms, expanding schools, law codes, and starting political election. And at the same time, Young Turks also promoted the Turkish language in the Ottoman Empire. However, the Young Turks' nationalist reforms angered the minority groups within the Ottoman Empire, laying the groundwork for the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire after World War I. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, Russia began its industrialization process. However, due to the lack of education of the people and the weakness of the state, Russian industrialization was extremely slow. Ironically, the industrialization of Tsarist Russia created a large number of middle class, but it was this middle class that opposed the absolute power of the Tsar because they want to play a role in the government. At the same time, the working proletariat also opposed the Tsarism because they were being exploited ruthlessness during the industrialization. This led to the emergence of two anti-Tsarist lines in Russia, the westernized middle class and the Marxist proletariat. In the resistance of the Tsar's exploitation on the worker class, of Orthodox archpriest Father Gapin led 30,000 workers to the Winter Palace for a peaceful demonstration, but they were violently suppressed, which became known as the Bloody Sunday. Coupled with the defeat of the Tsarist Russia to Japan in the Russo-Japanese War, a series of anti-Tsarist uprisings broke out in the Tsarist Russia in 1905. The most famous example was the Potemkin uprising, in which sailors from the Black Sea Fleet joined the resistance. However, the revolution of 1905 was unorganized, and the Potemkin uprising was quickly suppressed. But it still forced the Tsar to compromise and establish the parliament, which is a National Duma. By 1917, the Russians, suffering from war and poverty, turned to Lenin and the Communist Bolshevik Party, and Tsarist Russia became Soviet Russia. However, there were still a lot of anti-communist armed activities in Russia, which led to the Russian Civil War and Western intervention. At the end of the 19th century, the Qing dynasty was in a dilemma due to the internal and external wars. Internally, the Taiping uprising led by Christianized Hans failed, but it caused huge casualties and seriously shook the foundation of the Qing dynasty rule. Externally, the fall of the Opium War resulted in a large amount of Chinese land being seized by Western Empire and become in their sphere of influence. Also, the Qing dynasty tried to industrialize, but it was too late. The Qing dynasty navy was defeated by the industrialized Japanese navy in the Sino-Japanese War of the 1894 to 1895. Through every but showed one thing: the mandate of heaven to the Qing dynasty is exhausted. We'll talk about the Boxer Rebellion in China. The Boxer Rebellion was against the rule of the Qing dynasty, which they regarded as foreigners, because they were Manchus instead of Han Chinese. In order to exploit more of China's resources, the British, French, and Japanese and other powers sent troops to suppress the Boxer Rebellion. And Sun Yat-sen, a Chinese revolutionary educated in the West, led the anti-Qing movement in China, thus ending the imperial rule of China and built a failed democratic government. The corrupt ruling of Mexican dictator Diaz caused anger among all Mexican people. All social classes united under the leadership of Madero to overthrow Diaz, and Madero was elected president in 1910, but he was assassinated in 1912. This led to civil war that lasted for nearly 10 years, and the Mexican Revolution eventually ended with social reforms after the Civil War, which promoted minimum wages and male suffrage.